somehow she didn't have Zoom. So we've got Josh and Greg and Cynthia, and we will have, there's Josh. And we will have Joan, so we need one more person for a quorum. So we'll see if Mike gets a hold of Frank Wolf.
Hi, Josh.
Jill's usually on too, it surprises me. There's Jill, okay. So as soon as Jill
Jill,
comes on,
she's coming on.
all right, we're gonna have a quorum. There's Jill, thank you, Jill.
Yay.
One more person.
Well, it is 10:02. So while hopefully one or two more will join us, but with that, I'm going to call the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency for October 13th, 2021 to order. Is this enough for a quorum or do we need one more?
One more, but Joan will be coming on. So we
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. We need one more.
So while we're waiting to approve the agenda, I will just give a quick Finance Committee report for my report. And we had an overview of what the budget amendment we might need for the next executive director, and based on what we are paying Fran, our executive director. And we're looking at 90,750, but really that's kind of 51,940. And we would get this from, we refunded a bond last year, so we have that excess, and then we we also have the other reserve for the buyout, Fran's retirement buyout, already in the budget. So it was suggested by staff to hold off until January before we have a budget amendment to approve any additional funds for the executive director, and also to have approve a hearing for the budget amendment. And so both the resolution and the hearing, a budget amendment hearing, and we would do that in probably January. That's our recommendation. Because we need to verify that's about how much we need, and we don't quite know yet. We had an update to our first quarter report, and we're doing pretty well. Our fines are up this year. Nothing's really unusual. We did have, and it'll be reported out later, some major fines that we're going to end up having to collect. And we've received a wood stove grant. I'm not sure if that's recorded in our budget yet. And let me see what else. Otherwise, our expenditures and revenue are pretty close. We have good, because thank goodness to Lynn, we have good estimates on our for many of our contingency needs, and then let me see if that's it. So it was really a positive report. Did I miss anything, Lynn, or is there something else that we need to speak about? Or will you give it during your finance report? Okay, that sounds good. So the thing, how many do we have now? Do we have enough?
Joan has joined us, so I think we have enough.
Joan has joined us?
Is Joan? Yes, Joan's on. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that, we're able to have a motion to approve the agenda. Is there any corrections, additions, or omissions first? Seeing none, all those in favor, would somebody make a motion? Instead of me.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Yay, we have approval of the agenda. Is there any public comment waiting to testify? Not hearing any. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
I just had one question, if I could, Cynthia.
Sure.
The minutes of the personnel meeting look appropriate and accurate. I guess I was just surprised to see them here for the whole board to approve, since we didn't have a quorum of this body at that meeting. So I'm just curious the process, I guess.
Yeah, we haven't done anything. It's just recommended. We haven't really made a formal motion yet, and we can do that either during the finance committee report or earlier, or but we just wanted, she just gave an update to make sure that to show where we are right now. And so my suggestion is to either make a motion during the finance committee report when Lynn gives that out, or wait until we have more board members here, because Jim and Randy are gone, and who else is gone? I can't remember. There's one more, I think. So we need to, I would suggest we just make a motion towards the end.
I don't understand your response to my question. Sorry, Cynthia, but I was asking, in the consent agenda, number 3 on the consent agenda is the minutes of the personnel meeting with yourself and Jim and myself, as well as
Okay.
And I guess I don't understand. I think it's appropriate to give these notes to the whole board. I guess I just don't understand why the board is voting on minutes from an action that they were not at.
The issue is we don't have another personnel committee set up at this point, another meeting set up. So we can certainly hold it, but I think Debbie was just trying to get those approved because she's done the minutes and move on. But we, like the finance committee meets once a quarter, but personnel committee is as needed. So we don't have another meeting set up at this point.
But do we need to approve the minutes of committees?
Normally the committees approve the minutes.
So what's happened in the past, Greg, is we have one personnel committee meeting and then we don't have one until they set up a new personnel committee. And so it could be a year out before we meet again. I realize we should be having another one, but we do not have anything on the calendar for the first, in the future here at all.
I'm fine with it, and it's good to share the information. So I guess I was just a little confused, but I don't need to modify it.
I apologize. I didn't understand your question. Obviously, I thought you were talking about this other thing we were going to step through, but okay, does that help you? Okay.
It satisfies me. Yeah, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. So we have a consent agenda. And before I go on, I just want to clarify that the chair of the ORCAA board is not with us, and that's why you're getting me, the vice president chair. So, okay, so presentation, county treasurers, Jeff Gatman.
Thank you. Thank you for having us this morning. It's good to see you. Some faces I haven't seen in a while. Joan, it's good to see you, and Cynthia. And is that Jason sitting next to Fran?
Mark Gooden.
Oh, okay. The hair and the eyes. So, so with me this morning is the investment and banking officer for Thurston County, Nicole Mugi. A very, very talented individual, and I'm very proud to have her on my staff. What prompted this presentation was a discussion with Council Member Cooper in your chair, that, there was some confusion earlier this summer when the county did a refund levy or a refund bonds, and there was a payment that your organization was involved in that because we had to pay it off early. So the December debt payment ended up coming out of your last fiscal year budget because you're running July to June rather than calendar year. And so it created a little bit of a snafu that we apologize for because we didn't realize your fiscal year. But anyway, talking to Councilmember Cooper, I told him, you know, we do this presentation for our customers because we want to highlight what services we provide, you know, basically what is the public money paying for. So we've put together this presentation. We're always pretty excited to give it, and we will entertain any questions at the end. So we'll go ahead and get started. On the first page here is the mission statement for the office. I'm not going to bore you by reading it to you, but basically, you know, upholding integrity, customer service, and making sure that the staff that serves that you and the rest of the public are knowledgeable, efficient, and courteous. Next slide. So our relationship with ORCAA is a little bit different than most of our customers. We serve, including the county, or in addition to the county, we serve over 40 other taxing districts as their bank. So in normal, like if you look at the school district, we collect their property taxes and do the disbursements and such according to the law, and we are acting as their banker in investing their funds. For ORCAA, your funding sources are not property taxes. Your funding sources are grants and fees generally, but you do use us as your bank. And so if you think of us, basically it's like, you know, your bank that you have your funds in personally, with a few enhancements. We safeguard the funds, but at the same time, we also invest the funds while keeping them safeguarded. And we'll get into a little bit more detail later. Next slide. So there's several banking services that we provide for you. We negotiate and contract with the bank so that you don't have to, because of the volume of funds that we handle. We do get some favorable conditions at the bank, as long as we, you know, keep them happy by keeping enough money in the account at any given time. So we establish and maintain the services, including, you know, you guys don't deposit directly with our office, but we do provide you with the deposit bags and such so that you can deposit into the account. We also provide fraud protection for the warrants that you write. If a check tries to go clear the bank and the information on the face of the check that's presented does not match what is in the file we send to the bank flags it and asks if this should be cashed or not. And that, you know, somebody changing a $150 check to $1,150 prevents that from happening. My staff has banking experts staying apprised of the most recent and relevant services available. And I will tell you, Nicole is in charge of that, and she does stay apprised. She has really, really close relationships with all of the banks that we do business with, and is constantly looking for ways to innovate service. We also provide training and education on any new services. The money is deposited. You automatically earn interest on the full balance because of the investments. But there's no, you know, we don't bill you directly for the cost of the service fees at the bank. Those are subtracted from your interest earnings before the interest earnings are dispersed to you. And I touched a little bit on the debt service earlier. So when ORCAA, so this 2010 bond that was issued, ORCAA also had a piece of that. And so the county was making your debt payments on your share of that debt. And you guys just had to budget for it because we were obviously taking the money out of your account. And when a few years ago, I know that ORCAA wanted to pay off that bond early. And this office, my predecessor, advised, no, you don't want to do that. And the reason for that is because you would have had to prepay all of the interest that was due. So there would have been no advantage to doing that. In this case, then what happened is the county decided to refund those bonds because we could get a lower interest rate, which ended up saving you, I think it was a little over $2,800 in interest. But that meant that the December payment came out in, I think it was June, May or June. And that's what caught you unawares because, and caught us unawares because we weren't aware of your fiscal year. So after we conclude the presentation, I'd be more than happy to answer any more questions about that. But now I'm going to transition here to Nicole because she is much more expert on a lot of this than I am. So Nicole, take it away.
All right. Well, definitely both the banking piece and the investment piece are my expertise. The debt is not. So I'll leave that discussion and those questions directed to Jeff. I am learning more about debt, but it's not definitely not something that I handle on my desk. We have a lot more experienced staff in our office that manage the debt and deal with the relationship with the fiscal agent. In regards to your banking services, I'll just clarify a couple of things. So as Jeff said, we serve as your bank. So all those deposits come into our account. So I just want to clarify when he says that you don't deposit directly with our office, those funds are coming into our account and directly with us. You're just no longer physically bringing your deposits into the courthouse, into our office like you used to. We kind of miss that. We miss seeing Lynn's shiny face coming into our office and dropping off those deposits. So Lynn traditionally takes those deposits directly to the bank. So generally the deposit slips that are required that identify ORCAA and make sure that matches up with the information that you send to us so that we can credit your account are the supplies that we provide to you. And when Jeff says that the fees are subtracted, those service fees are subtracted from your interest earnings, I just want to clarify that that is not a one-to-one relationship. So the amount of fees for services that you use are not necessarily correlated to the amount in fees that are deducted. In fact, they're significantly less, and that will make more sense as we move forward into the presentation and I show you how that works with your interest earnings. So with that, because we are your bank, we do provide you a bank statement. And I'm sure Lynn is very familiar with this site. This is our Treasury accounting portal that was developed in our office by one of our IT staff. This is a portal that Lynn can log into and be able to see at any time, 2 days prior, the current balance in your fund. It also, when she clicks on the fund, shows her, this is just an example of the activity that she sees. This is like your online banking statement showing all of the deposits that have been made. This shows it by date and by amount and type of deposit. So this breaks it out for you for the deposits that you make by credit card receipts, as well as direct deposits that are taken physically to the bank or that are ACH deposits at the bank as well. Also on that site is access to the monthly report. So what I just showed you was kind of your daily live, it is 2 days old worth of information, but then at the end of the month, the reports of all of your activity for the month, as well as your interest earnings, are also posted to the site and available in PDF form for easy viewing, as well as Excel so that you can download, analyze, sort, whatever you want to do with that. This is an example of the monthly report that you receive. So this, this particular report shows August activity for the all of the deposits. So you can see the cash activity that shows the deposits for the month, as well as on the second page of the report, it shows the warrants that have been issued, how much you have in warrants outstanding, and then a breakdown of your investment activity, which shows your earnings, as well as how much we still owe you for what you've earned in the past. This is also a report that you receive that shows all the detail of all of the warrants that have been issued, as well as all of the warrants that are still outstanding yet to be cashed at the bank. That is part of our disbursements process. We, as your treasurer, are more than just your bank. We're actually guaranteeing those payments for you. In your personal bank, they don't guarantee those payments. That's your responsibility. Your responsibility is to make sure that the money is in the bank. Our responsibility is to make sure that those items that you're wishing to be paid are paid. We definitely want you to have the money in the bank to cover those, but we are the guarantor on those payments. We also support the process, which has become of significant volume in these days, especially with COVID, for electronic disbursements. And we have been working more and more converting many of those payments to electronic disbursements. And we also provide an ACH platform and support and administer that for you as well. And then just like Jeff talked about earlier, related to those disbursements, we also have fraud protection. We actually have fraud protection on the warrants as well as the ACH. So we only allow certain vendors to debit our account. We have what's called blocks and filters. So nobody can debit our account unless we've pre-approved them, and we actually have to put specific information in there to identify them so that when it debits our account, if they're not authorized, it sends me an alert. However, if they are and it meets the threshold requirements, it's allowed to process without any issue. Now, the even more fun part of my job is investing the money. Although admittedly, it's not as fun these days. There's not much fun to have because there's not much money to be had, and there's not many places to put it. But this just shows you as of August how our portfolio is diversified. So to you, it seems like you have your money in an overnight checking account because that's the benefit that you receive. All of the money that you deposit with us is earning interest on the full balance at all times based on the yield of our portfolio. However, we're combining the funds from many different districts and many different departments, and you get to benefit from that by us being able to invest pools of money out to 5 years. Some new investment types have been added to the portfolio in the last few years that you may not have seen in the past. This includes supernationals and corporate notes. There's not much diversified into those categories currently because there's not much yield available to justify the risk associated, especially with the corporate notes. However, there has been over periods of time, and we still own a few pieces, and that's what you see in the corporate note distribution there. Places like US Bank, Amazon, Intel, Pepsi. But then the majority of our funds are currently in LGIP and in agency bonds.
Nicole, do you want to clarify that the corporate notes are different from stocks?
Sure. So you see these names like Amazon or Unilever or Pepsi. Corporate notes are not an investment in the stock of the company. All of our investments actually are investments in debt. So just like you as an organization go out for bonds and have municipal bonds, these are corporate bonds. So they're debt. It's debt of the organization, not stock in the company. This is always, I say this at every presentation, but this is always my favorite slide of the presentation. Although, again, not as exciting to show this year as it usually is, but it's still my favorite slide. The reason being that even though 2020 was less than 2019, this shows you what we're accomplishing by managing this investment portfolio. This is not directly related to you, but you benefit from this. This is the overall amount of revenue just in interest earnings that we've earned, that we've been able to provide to our districts, that they don't have to levy in taxes. So I was pretty excited to be able to show that in 2019, that I was directly responsible for earning $18.3 million in additional revenue for our districts. As it compares to the state pool, this has been our performance over time. The red bar is the state pool, and the blue bar is our pool. The reason that we like to show this to our customers is it is absolutely an option for the county to not run a pool at all and to place all of those funds into the state pool instead. So the county could potentially save some money by not paying somebody like me to manage the investments and put all of that money into the state pool. However, you can see that based on the performance over the years, that the value of having a person like myself managing those investments has paid off in the additional revenue. So what you really want to know is what this means for you directly. So that's all fun and fine and dandy and, you know, okay, so I've done a great job, but why do you care and why does it matter to you? So this shows 2020 and current year through August 31 of what you've earned in interest on your funds as a result of me investing those funds. And I broke this out between interest earned and interest paid because it also match up with the reports that you receive on a monthly basis. And the difference between those is with interest securities, when we purchase them, generally we get paid interest every 6 months. So we're earning that interest over that time, but we don't receive the cash until those coupon payments are due. So that's when we distribute the cash to you. So we're keeping track the entire time of how much we owe you for the earnings earned. And then when we receive the cash, we distribute that. And how we do that is your earnings are based on your average daily cash balance and what we've earned in interest. And so that determines your share of the portfolio. And then when we pay the cash out, that is based on your percentage of accounts receivable outstanding, so that it's always earned fairly and distributed fairly. When we distribute those earnings, those are after fees have been reduced for the cost of doing services. So all of the earnings that I have reported on all of the slides are earnings after I've been paid, the bank has been paid, all of those fees have been paid. Those are reduced first from the overall earnings of the portfolio. And then what's left is what's distributed. And that's why what I said earlier, the fees are not necessarily a one-to-one of the services that you use. Part of the reason for that, you benefit from that in multiple ways. One of them is, one of the features of our banking services is what we call an earnings credit. And based on the rate of that earnings credit, I can earn more or less credit towards services based on my balances at the bank. And I make that determination based on what's the best benefit of my customers to give them the most amount of interest earnings. So you'll notice in most years, towards the end of the year, we actually rebate back funds as additional interest earnings because we've been able to offset our banking fees significantly enough that we've actually collected too much money from you over the period of the year. This also shows you just a little bit of history for the last couple of years where rates have been. Currently, the rate is just over 0.5%, which isn't a lot, but if you look at how that is correlating, it's pretty close to about half of what you earned last year, which makes sense. Last year was 1.15%. This year it's averaging 0.61. And if you were to apply that, it looks like you guys have been receiving about 1,040 a month in interest earnings. So you could expect that you would earn at least another additional $4,000-ish for the remainder of the year with the remaining months that we have. Likely that will be a little bit more. I'm just starting to evaluate what a rebate might look like for the end of this year with the fees with the bank. I do expect interest rates to remain just about where they're at. We've been staying right around 55, 57, 60, kind of in that range, 55 to 60 basis points. So right around that, just over half of 1%. And I expect that to remain through the end of the year, and therefore your monthly interest earnings should remain about the same if your average daily cash balance remains the same as well through the end of the year. We also have some new reports available to you. The link to this is also on the Treasury accounting portal, but anyone, any member, any public member can also find this on our website. This is, I'm actually not sure 100% if this will work in the share. I have a link to the site here, but we have a, it may not say new anymore, actually. Jeff, you might have had
It
that.
does. We
Yeah.
removed that.
We have a link here to all of our investment reports. Are you able to see that web page, or is it still on the, it's still on the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me do this real quick.
Yeah, we took off the new label at the end of June.
That's what I get for reusing slides. So this is the site that will take you to. And this has our current investment policy, the certifications that we've received from state and national organizations for our policy. And we'll also provide quarterly reports of our entire portfolio. So the monthly reports that you get directly on Treasury Accounting Portal are specific activity to ORCAA. These reports are our portfolio as a whole, where at any time you can see where I have funds invested, how much we're earning, how we're performing, and that we're meeting compliance to all of our state statutes as well as our investment policy. You can also see any of the finance committee reports for the current year within each quarter that we've reported to our finance committee here at the county. Go back to my presentation here. If my mouse will work.
So are there any questions you would like to ask Nicole or Jeff? So if you quit sharing your screen, I actually have a couple, I think. One is just kind of general. Will it only show, can we go on there to see other agencies' reports? Is that available to us, or is that hidden?
So we do not report specific entities' cash activity, if that's what you're asking.
Well, if you wanted to know investment, so I'm just using as an example, the city of Lacey, would we be able to see investments and things like that or not?
The investment reports that are available are the portfolio as a whole, because that's how we invest. We're not investing individual funds. So they're not broken out by entity, and we do not do investments for the cities.
And I didn't think so, but I was just using that. Okay, so the other thing is just because, well, I'm not a treasurer, so there. So you talk about your investing the debt and not stocks. As when you're talking about debt, is just explain a little bit what, in lay terms, what that actually means to me.
So it's just the same as the municipal bonds that you issue as a city or as ORCAA, or it's the debt that's issued in bonds that I purchase as an investor. So When
Okay.
ORCA issues bonds, though that is debt that's issued out on the market, and investments can purchase those bonds and earn that interest for their portfolio.
Okay. That makes more sense to me because I know somebody has to purchase those bonds and you do that. Okay, that explains it. Are there any other questions?
I do not purchase ORCA bonds, not because they're not a good investment, but because I personally consider it a conflict of interest.
Oh, okay, because you handled the investment. That
Mhm.
makes sense. So are there any other additional questions? Well, this was really a great report and I thought it was extremely helpful because, we don't talk much about investments and those kinds of things and what you actually do. So I'm glad Council Member Cooper asked you to go ahead and come and give us a presentation. So with that,
Hey, Cynthia, here's Lynn. I just would like to comment, Cynthia and the rest of the board. Hey, Jeff, Gavin, Nicole, Wendy, thank you so much. This is Lynn talking. I really enjoy working with your staff. I've been working with the treasurer's office since 1984. And I tell you, there's never been a hiccup, it seems like. You guys are great to work with. You're frontline folks. I've been working with Nicole for a long time, Nicole. And I just want to applaud Jeff, your staff are great to work with. So thank you for the professionalism they offer, and they're right there to answer any questions for us. So thanks for handling our money and investing it the way you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm pretty proud of the staff that I have here because they do work hard to serve you. And, a lot of times in government, we don't often hear the positives. So we really appreciate it. Really thank you for your time today. And we're, as any of you that know us know, we're available anytime by email or phone to answer any questions or talk to you. So thank you very, very much.
And I did mean it when I said I really do miss Lynn's shining face coming into our office. And just so you know, Lynn, that was just about 23 years ago.
Jeff and Nicole, thank you on behalf of ORCAA. We really appreciate you coming in and doing the presentation. And, again, the board is pleased in terms of how we're doing with our revenue and the way that it's invested by the county. So thank you for spending the time with us. And it's really very helpful to have this information. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for explaining the partnership deeper. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
thank you. So with that, I'll let you guys go on with your business and then we'll go ahead and go to new business, which is draft regulations update. And this is an action item.
Robert, you want to provide that?
I can do that. And good morning, all. That was actually rather educational this morning, so that was appreciated presentation. So what we're to give you the full story in a nutshell, we're going through the regulation revision process right now, and before you is the most massive change we've made since 2006 to our regulations. Why are we doing this? The primary cause was the state legislature decided to renumber the WAC that we have relied on, at least through my career here. So instead of referring to RCW 7094, we're now in 78.15. And we have multiple references throughout our regulation. So Debbie and others have been working very diligently trying to modernize, I guess, a better word for it, changing the regulations. The overall philosophy here was to not make no significant changes, meaning to me, we don't expect public comment, but that remains to be seen. Some of the changes that we're going through, I guess I should point this out to you, is on tab B4 regulation changes. What you see is basically our entire regulation, and there's a lot of changes through it. So to summarize what you're looking at there, Again, we're changing the chapter 7094 to chapter 78.15. We have updated some of the WAC, Washington Administrative Code references. The term shall has a new meaning, so we are replacing that word with must basically throughout the regulation.
Robert, what's the new meaning of the word shall? So I keep up to date.
It means you might want to do something instead of way I grew up with it is thou shalt. And that has changed apparently in the legal view of things. So we are trying to modify our regulation to reflect that change. A bunch of the definitions have been removed or are being deleted from the regulation. The reason why is we don't use those actual definitions anymore. So we'll get rid of them. The term control officer is being replaced with executive director throughout the entire regulation. There were a bunch of grammatical changes to improve readability of the regulations. And I guess for the newer members, ORCAA has a different process for changing regulations in the cities and counties. So we go through the Office of the Code Reviser. It's a state office. We are treated as a quasi state office for our regulation changes. So that's why we do that. So in effect, we submit almost the entire regulation will go to the Code Reviser, and they will publish that in the Washington State Register in the future here. And we would schedule a public hearing for the January board meeting. That's how long the process is going to take at this point. Again, it's due to the volume that we are submitting here. Let's see. So ideally, what I'm seeking is a motion from the board to allow us to move forward with filing a CR 102. It does not impact, we still have to go through public noticing, and all of those elements will be certainly addressed before you have it before you in January.
I'd like to add just a little bit. So we also went through and just as we have with EPA, we update based upon EPA changes in areas that have been delegated. So we decided to take out some of the specifics, and we said, certain things like lowest achievable emission rate means the same as defined in the WAC 173-400 8810. And so again, as those WACs are updated, we'll be updating too, rather than, so it makes it, we're consistent with the WAC, which is what we want to do, and it makes the updating a little easier. We'll also be going through a process. So this is, Robert, so this is for the first phase, but then there are more specific things that need to be dealt with. But to take it all on at one time was just too much. So we're now going to be looking at, okay, what are the other kinds of changes that we need to bring back to the board in smaller pieces to talk about real substantive changes, if there are any changes that need to occur. So that will, but we wanted to get this piece done first. And for me personally, I wanted to get this rolling again, just to get that process done. We actually didn't have to change, we didn't have to change the RCWs till 2025. But again, it just makes sense to get it done. So we could still use 7094, even though when you go to the RCW, it's 70A.15. It just makes sense to update things. So this is more of an updating, but there'll be more to come that's substantive in nature, where we're going to be talking to the board in depth about the changes that we think need to occur in our regulations. So anyway, that's just one other piece of it.
Greg.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Robert for a really good short presentation. You answered all my questions, and I'm glad this is a lot to digest in a short time. So I'm glad we're having a public hearing moving forward. Thanks for explaining the process, and it looks great.
Great. So with that, staff is requesting a motion to approve filing a CR 102 with the State Code Reviser amending ORCAA's regulations. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion moving that staff is approved to file a CR 102 with the State Code Reviser amending ORCAA's regulations.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any more discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. Thank you, Robert. So with that, we will move on to the compliance program, I guess we're at.
Yeah, me again.
Yes, it is, Robert. Hang on, let me find it in my little, oh, there we are. Okay.
So this is tab B5. It's the compliance report in your records there. As you're browsing down through things, you will probably see an increase in complaints, and you will definitely see that the burning season has opened and we are issuing land clearing burn permits, several coming in a day right at the moment. And we are getting those processed and sent back out. I do have one feel-good story for you that came out of this month. Compliance inspector here, Tony Gibson, went up to Quilcene at the request of their assistant fire chief, and he and the fire chief met with as described to me, a problem burner, and also went to door to the neighborhood and explained what the rules were. And so everybody in that vicinity is on the same page at this point. So it was one of those things that, and the assistant chief actually called me afterwards and to say thank you. So I was going to pass that one along. But it was it's a little time consuming, but it's a way to say, hey, we've talked to you. We've talked to all your neighbors, and it's a good outcome. So hopefully it cures, but probably just delays future problems there, but we'll see. Are there any questions on the reports before you?
Are there any questions?
And just a comment on Tony coming up to Quilcene. That's great. And it's probably the first time ever that everyone in Quilcene has been on the same page about anything. So that's great.
That's true. I've known a few times where they've had other issues there.
And if there are other, obviously our region is, our region is huge, but, staff are more than willing to partner with other fire districts, or county government to, again, because our focus really is to try to educate so that people we don't want to issue violations. We really try to educate first. So, let us know, and we're happy to, Tony is fabulous, was wonderful out there. I have another example of where Rob, one of our newest employee, was out, and he happened to just see some material that shouldn't be burned. And he stopped and talked to the people and again, there was no problem. And he just said, he explained what the rules were, again, education. So we hope that they never burned the material. So our compliance staff do a great job of going out and trying to be in front of the problem as opposed to having to deal with the problems when they arise. So again, if there are opportunities where we can partner with your counties and cities, fire districts, please let us know. We want to work with you on these kinds of things.
Thank you. So with that, next up is our engineering program, Mark Gooden. Mark.
Good morning. For sake of our newer board members, the report I'm going to give concerns construction permits, and these are permits that are required prior to construction or modification of any new stationary source of air emissions in the state. And of course, we have jurisdiction over just our 6 counties, but that may involve construction of a gasoline station, a new auto body repair shop, all the way up to a power plant. So those are the types of permits that the engineering staff deals with, and what town is it? I believe tab
It is
five,
tab B6.
tab B6, you'll find a list of those permits that are in-house right now, permit applications that is. And this list, it's titled Industrial/Commercial Air Permits. And so you can browse through these and give a call if any of them pique your interest or are in your jurisdiction and you want to just know more about them. I'm just going to bring up a couple of these, highlight a few. Right on page 1, the very first one, Crown Cork and Seal. Or let me back up and say that this very first page above that bold line, those are the ones that actually got finalized since the last board meeting. And so you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 permits that we actually issued as final. The very top on the list, Crown Cork and Seal, that's here in Olympia. They manufacture cans, and they installed a 3rd can production line that actually required installation of a control device called a regenerative thermal oxidizer, which is basically a huge incinerator. And that incinerator is used to burn off all the air toxics coming from their can production line. Okay, so this is quite a big, complicated permit. It took a long time to get processed, and I think that our engineer assigned to this, and Jennifer DeMay, did a really fabulous job in navigating some of the hurdles that Crown Cork and Seal was up against. Of course, they wanted approval as soon as possible, and I think Jennifer did a very good job getting the approval to them in a very timely fashion. If you want more information on that one, we've got a lot of details. The next one is on page 2. AGP, Port of Grays Harbor Terminal 2. And this is an existing grain terminal out in the Port of Grays Harbor. And they were permitted by us originally way back in, I believe, like 2002. And they recently experienced some structural failure of their ship loading mechanism. So AGP, it's a grain terminal. What they do is they take commodities like soybean meal, corn, animal feeds, and they temporarily store them, and then they load them onto huge ocean-going ships. And so their existing approved ship loader had structural damage, and so they came to us seeking approval for a temporary ship loading facility to fill the gap while they repaired their permanent ship loading facility. So this application was submitted with a request to expedite it because they could not operate while their existing ship loader is being inspected and repaired. This situation happened at a time when because of other things happening at other ports throughout our nation, it was difficult for them. They had commodity that was backing up that they needed to load onto ships. And I know you probably are aware of all the backstories in the shipping industry that are occurring right now. So they requested expedited approval, and we have now a final approval for them. We're just waiting on payment of their final fee, and hopefully this will get completed and off our list sometime today or tomorrow. I'm just pointing this one out because it was a situation where it was an expedited permit application. We worked with AGP and got them approval so they can continue to operate.
How long did it take them from the time they applied to get approval to continue operation?
And the approval has not been issued yet. I expect it we finalized our permit, and now we need two things from them: payment of the fee and a confirmation from the city of Hoquiam that they went through the SEPA process. And we're expecting both of those sometime today. But it was a couple of weeks. It was like 2 weeks.
So are they still shut down then?
That is my understanding. Now there might be activity out there associated with setting up the foundation to get the mobile ship loader, which they're proposing, in place, and a temporary bag house, which is the control device used to control particulate emissions from their operation. So you might see activity out there, but my understanding is that they're not loading commodity.
Mhm.
But I got a call from Gary Nelson, who's the port director, and he is so pleased with the speed at which because Mark took this permit on himself, and he's very pleased with the speed, and so is AGP. This could have taken a long time, but Mark made it a priority and got it done. So the port and the AGP are not unhappy. They are extremely pleased, and Hoquiam is expediting the SEPA determination on this because of the situation, because we actually can't issue the formal permit until we have SEPA in hand. So working with Hoquiam on that also. So this was a real team effort. Mark took the lead. Mark did a fabulous job. And I can tell you that AGP and Gary Nelson from the port are very happy with the outcome.
Good. Thanks.
Great. That's really great. Yeah, you do hear about that all the time, is how commodities are being held up a lot and stuff. So that's great. ORCAA could do that. So is there any other questions for Mark? Seeing none, then thank you. Let's go on to Odell Hadley, Air Quality Program.
Everyone. So I'm going to share my screen here with you once I can find that. Yep. All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a pretty short summary. This is the air quality monitoring summary for September. And I'm gonna. Okay. So September was a great month. The temperatures dropped. We had good air quality at all of our sites every day, and we were able to collect 100% of the data at all sites. So not a single day was missed, which doesn't happen that often, maybe once or twice a year. So we'll celebrate our win for September. And as you can see, most of the numbers at all of our sites are pretty similar for the minimums, the average, and the maximums. We also this is our ozone for September. September is the last official month that the state collects ozone. The blue line is the ozone monitor that we were hosting for the state. Normally, the ecology runs an ozone monitor in Yelm, but for logistical infrastructure reasons, they could not have the site up in Yelm this year. So we hosted it in Lacey, Mountain View. And then in the second part of September, we installed our own 2B ozone analyzer, which is an federal equivalence monitor. And I overlay that with, let it run next to the state's monitor for about a week before I returned the ozone monitor to ecology. And you can see that both are reading the same values, and that's just a way of making sure that we can have continuity in the data between the two analyzers. So that looks good. And we will be running the ozone 2B analyzer through the year. And in other monitoring news, I've continued to work on the Mason County Saturation Study Report and Data Analysis. If you remember last month, I finally finished the Thurston County one. We are not collecting saturation study data in Mason County anymore. And I have on Monday, I installed the sensor at Harbor High School in Aberdeen. So we are off to a start on our Grace Harbor saturation study. Still working on the America Rescue Plan funding through EPA to get upgrades to Chesapeake. Have attended a couple of webinars for that, and we're getting close to submitting our request for direct funding. And we will also be submitting a competitive grant just in case we don't get the direct funding. And I verified with EPA that we can submit to both programs. Lots of visits to Chesapeake in September. We had annual certification of 2 calibrators, and the calibrators can only be absent from the site for 2 weeks. So I have been going up to Chesapeake about once every 2 weeks for the last 2 months, and we'll be going up again 2 weeks from now. I mentioned the ozone at Mountain View. And then we've also been doing a lot of our quarterly QCs. That's Nick was able to get up to Port Townsend, Port Angeles, and Aberdeen, which is good. We needed new gas, stand gas at a lot of the sites, and he's been replacing lamps. So each site required more than your typical QC, which is great that he was able to get up there and do all of that. So yeah, not a huge amount of news for monitoring this month, but if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Are there any questions for Dr. Hadley? Joan.
Hi, Adele. I have a kind of a general question. And in the Clean Air Act, which I know guides much of what we do, is there any way, or has anything ever been done in tracking truck pollution, truck traffic, diesel pollution?
My short answer is I guess. I assume so, but I am not aware of it immediately, and I can check into that for you. But ORCAA does not regulate mobile sources, so that's sort of off of my radar as far as air pollution sources. But I know a lot of universities and states, and I think the state Department of Ecology has done some work with that. So I will check into it and get back to you. And so what specifically are you wondering how much of our pollution is from mobile sourers, or what is your interest in that? So I can refine my question.
Yeah, goes back a ways. And there was, and I can't remember where I got it or whatever. There was a truck study done in pollution going past schools. And we have another issue like that on the books, possibly in Tumwater, and it's a large amount of truck pollution. And we also had someone who told us, who studied this, who knew this and had information that truck diesel pollution, fumes, exhaust, all of that kind of stuff is lethal in some cases. I'm trying to forget, I forgot the word, what it contains. And so this has become a big deal for a neighborhood and for a school. And I just wondered where the best place to look is, and I thought of you since you know all about it.
I will dig into it and get back to you, but my jumping off point will probably be, I have a couple contacts over at the Department of Health, and then there are a few toxicologists who work for the air quality program over at Ecology, and I think they deal with this issue as well. So I will ask them. Did you want to tell me specifically the neighborhood or the school of concern, or Or maybe we can talk offline if you would rather do that.
It's in the Salmon Creek area. It's Bush Middle School.
Okay.
It relates to a large project for a, watch your language, Joan, warehouse and degradation of the environment along with all of these trucks and things. So there's quite a bit of kerfuffle about more than that, about all this. And I slightly remember some of the work done on another truck study. And then I just read something about a neighborhood in California that had a large, industrial area, warehouse stuff move in, and it just devastated the pollution in the air and kids with asthma and all kinds of things. And so I just wondered if we had anything if you could just even email me what sources that the state has or has done, I'll be delighted to look them up and add them to the Clean Air Act.
So I would suggest that you email it to all of us, because I think that knowledge is really a good thing to have.
It's good to have if people are doing construction and changing, the air or the configurations or whatever around them, and especially around schools and elder care facilities and things. So it's become an issue, and so here we have it right here in our neighborhood.
Keep in mind, the supply chain is also an issue, so you can't shut down trucking. It's already a problem.
There's a move by EPA and President Biden to again deal with trucks and pollution and the changeover to electric vehicles, reducing the diesel emissions. So that's one of the high points that Michael Reagan, the new EPA director, is looking at to try to allow trucking to occur, because you're right, we need to have the transport, but to be able to do it in an more environmentally safe manner. There were also studies done in Seattle a number of years ago by EPA via the roadway, looking at air quality on the highway. But as I say, EPA, that's on their radar. That's one thing they're trying to push through because it's not just light traffic, not just light trucks, but all trucking, and as well as school buses and all transit. I mean, Seattle, just as a matter of fact, has some brand new all electric buses they just unloaded, I think, in the last couple of days. So EPA is really pushing the need to reduce the air pollution issues from diesel and from these kind of vehicles. So we're going to see a lot of changes coming down the pike, and hopefully some funds to be able to make those changes, because it's expensive.
Well, it needs to be sooner rather than later, because the impact, especially in a small community, I mean, we've got enough with I-5 whizzing by, but when it seems like I've read more things of when it gets into a community. So someone builds a big warehouse, and they have hundreds of trucks coming and going and idling and whatever, and people live near that. And in some of these cases, which is one of the ones here, there's a school. So I'm really happy that there is more study and more things going on here. We really need to be conscious also in our cities and in our counties when construction is going on. It's an issue that, pollution is an issue to look at. So Adela, I really appreciate that. You helping me find out a few things, maybe.
So
you were
very
the expert that
quickly,
came to my mind.
very quickly, I know that the county and cities can make an idling ordinance type of thing, where they have to just take their electric thing and plug it in and not idle, so that kind of reduces sitting outside the warehouse waiting for their turn to go deliver. They can quit idling. But I'm not sure Lacey has done that, but I know you can do that.
No.
Anyway, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. So if there are no more additional questions, let's move on to the education and outreach update. Dan.
Okay, thanks. I'll just follow up on Joan's question. Two things I was going to mention. I know Ecology does have, or at least did have, a diesel emissions coordinator. And we've worked with them in the past on things like short line railroad engines that were idling near schoolyards. And we were able to coordinate and get those moved to a different location as they sat and waited for load transfers and whatnot. So it's a similar thing where we were able to work with Ecology and find some solutions that made everybody happy. And also way back, Robert just reminded me in 2005, I was going to say 2006, but 2005, our then executive director, Rich Stedman, got a health risk assessment study done for ORCAA that looked primarily at emissions from mobile sources in our community. So I'll dig that up and make sure that gets forwarded to all of you as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So again, that's pretty dated material. It's 2005, so data from probably 2003, 2004, but it's at least something that we have specific to our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So
Thank
I'll
you.
get that out to you.
Very good.
On to burning issues, and that's what I've been consumed with for the past month. I mentioned, I think last time, that the state had agreed to fund our wood smoke reduction, wood stove replacement program again. Just a day or two ago, we finally got the signed contract back from the state, so that program is now underway. I've got agreements from 4 or 5 vendors already and a couple projects that have been submitted for approval. So that program hit the ground running as soon as we got the contracts. And just a reminder, the new program is good for wood stove replacements in all of Thurston County. So no longer just the cities and urban growth areas and the most densely populated areas. It's all of Thurston County and an expanded region around the Mason County or Shelton UGA in Mason County. So, and it applies to removal and replacement of old, actually not even that old. The new standard is anything pre-2020 compliant standard wood stoves are qualified for replacement under this program. So pretty much every wood stove anywhere in Thurston County and a good part of Mason County, same general terms, $1,800 if they replace their wood stove with a zero emission heat pump or ductless heat pump, $1,000 if they replace it with propane or natural gas. And in Mason County, where there's no natural gas available, they have the option of replacing it with low emission pellet stoves for $750. The really good news for everybody else is we were able to convince the state to open this up, at least the recycling award. So if people just want to get rid of an old dirty wood stove and replace it with something on their own, or not even replace it if they already have a good furnace, every one of our 6 counties now is eligible for a $500 recycling award. So residents that just want to get rid of a pre-2020 compliant wood stove anywhere in our 6 counties can contact us, work through the process. And as long as they remove a stove that they're using for a quart of wood a year at least, and do the paperwork, we can get them a $500 recycling award. So first time ever we've been able to open it up to all of our jurisdictions. So really happy with that. Outdoor burning, as Robert said, we're in the midst of our outdoor burn season. And as Fran noted, we try to work through education and changing behavior through education first and foremost. So I've included in your packet, I think the last page is a mailer we did to targeted areas around Thurston County, mostly kind of that urban growth area, unincorporated fringe around Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. So about 4,000 addresses got this, basically explaining that trash burning is illegal. And if you are in an area where it's legal to burn, here's the proper way to do it. And this is a mailer. We've done a similar one in the past. And again, it's targets outdoor burning, but also illegal trash dumping, trying to curb some of that for the county as well. So it's been, I was going to say well received. It's certainly been received. For the most part, it's been well received. We've had some not so complimentary comments, but fire departments I've talked to have been very happy with it and happy that we got it out and shared the information. So that's and we'll be doing some more of those. I know Rob has presented me with a couple problem areas in the Clallam County area that we're going to target with some very targeted mailings as well. Let's see, and then on our permit program, that's we're sitting at about 1,300 permits for Thurston County. That's residential outdoor burning, yard waste burning. So about 30% of our, or actually closer to 40% of our total permits issued for the entire burn season have been issued already. So people do like to get their permits, and that permit is good for the burn season. And we also expanded the burn permit program to Grace Harbor counties, City of McCleary and Grace Harbor Fire District 12 wanted to participate in the program, basically a free burn permit program, as a means to share information with burners and to be able to communicate with the burners should the fire safety burn ban come up or an air quality burn ban or whatnot. It's just a good method of facilitating two-way communication with people that are burning. And again, sharing good information is what we really want to do to curb problems before they get started. So that program has, I noted, got our first permit yesterday from City of McCleary resident, and we'll be doing some outreach with the city fire department and Fire District 12. Developed a poster for them to put up in public areas, as well as some brochures they can have at their stations and libraries and whatnot. And then we're coordinating to get into any community newsletters, city flyers or city utility bills, that sort of thing. So still working out the logistics of the communication, but people are finding it on our website. Again, it's a free, easy to fill out on our website. It's an automatic process. They fill out the form and the permit is immediately emailed back to them. So that's where we stand on our burn and communication programs right now.
Great. Are there any questions? Greg?
Just a comment. Look, all looks great, Dan. I noticed one small typo on the second page of the flyer if you're going to use it more.
Okay.
Unless angry wood is something that is we can use. Talks about ironwood instead of firewood.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Looks great.
Actually seems appropriate. So
Yeah, I think some of our people do burn ironwood.
yeah. So I'm not seeing any more hands raised for questions. So thank you, Dan. Let's move on to Lynn and Finance Administrative Update.
Well, good morning, everyone. Nice to see y'all. Happy faces. Great. So I know that Cynthia touched on our financial report briefly, and financial report is behind B2, boy, 2, in our index of board documents. And just briefly, the board approved a budget of $2,721,000 in June. We've received 34% of our revenues to date, equaling 937,000 plus change. On the expenditure side, we've spent about 23%, or roughly 580,000 in expenditures. And as history shows, 87% of our expenditures is our salaries and benefits, which leads me to my next discussion on benefits. we did receive positive results from the Association of Washington Cities, who is our trust for all of our benefits for medical, dental, life, vision. And they have shared premium for calendar year 2022. And so the good news is we have two medical plans here, Regents and Kaiser. Regents has a slight increase of 5.8%, Kaiser 7.3%. Those percentages are equivalent to my projections in the fiscal year 2022 budget. So we're safe there, so that's good. I want to do a shout out to Cynthia, who sits on the AWC board, and extend a thank you for all your hard work with AWC, Cynthia, as well as ORCAA as well. So,
Yes, Orca too.
the rest of the benefits, there were no increases. There are a couple enhancements, which will be shared with staff at our benefits fair later this month. Other than that, I'm working on a C-trip policy draft to bring to the finance board, who will bring it to the regular board, and providing a solar update at a later time as well. So other than that, I entertain any questions, comments, shout outs.
Yay!
Woo! So it was really nice having the Thurston County Treasurer's Office represent and share what their services are. It's been a long time, and again, I've worked with their staff again since 1984. Back in Mike Murphy days, and so that goes back quite a few years. But working with them has really been fabulous, and want to continue that good working relationship. So, thank you all.
Is there any additional questions for Lynn? Okay, thank you. So next up is Fran's Executive Director's report.
Thank you. I mentioned some of the things in terms of talking to Gary Nelson from the Port of Grace Harbor, and Rob stopping and giving information. I also wanted to indicate that, and this goes beyond me. So when all the issues with vaccinations for COVID and it came up, I was talking to Tumwater, to John Doan, and to City of Olympia, Jay Burney, and to Ramiro Chavez from Thurston County about wanting to really coordinate together. And so they asked me to participate in they meet monthly in sort of a, the county administrator, city administrator, and it's the Port of Olympia and special districts group. And so, I participate in that, and it's really helpful because, again, our office is based here, most people live here, to really be part of the organizations that are leading our county and our cities. So that, and I said, they know that I'm retiring, and my successor will be also participating in that organization. I feel it's really important for whoever sits in this position to have good rapport with the counties and cities that we serve. One of the things that Dan and I have not been able to do this year is to get out. We normally like to get out and meet with the local jurisdictions, especially the planning departments, public works departments, to talk about our asbestos and demo and all the kinds of things that we collaborate with our local jurisdictions on. It's been really hard because of COVID. I'm hoping that, again, in the spring, if things lighten up, that it'd be a good way for my successor to go out and meet with the local jurisdictions, the counties and the cities, again, talk about asbestos, demolition, outdoor burning, all the kinds of things that we interface with, because those relationships are absolutely paramount. So it's been difficult this time around, but again, at least in Thurston County, there's an organization set up. And if there are others like that in the other counties, I'd love to hear about it so that, again, we can participate. And, we do these via Zoom, so it's not a big deal no matter where you live to be able to participate. Washington Cares. So interesting. I've had conversations with other organizations, and I have to say AWC has done a phenomenal job for the cities and the entities that participate with AWC, and number one, providing an alternative to Washington Cares, but getting the information out. And I know that for ORCAA, we made sure that our staff really understood what the Washington Cares Act was all about. So many folks that I talked to hadn't heard about it. I mean, I was talking to someone that works at DNR. DNR hadn't said a word about it. Actually, I talked to my own children, and they didn't know about it until I told them about it. So again, our staff's done a really good job making sure that all of our staff understand what Washington Cares is all about and what the alternatives are or were, and the fact that AWC did present a good alternative if they wanted to go outside the state system. So I really appreciate, and Cynthia's been really great working with AWC on that. So that's really been very helpful. Also, just a reminder, we do have a December meeting. We normally take a December off, but we're not this year. And my assumption is that there'll be interviews of the top candidates at the December meeting. So again, make sure you keep that on your calendar. And just to let you know, applications are coming in. Linnea she just gives me a number once a week. And as of this past Tuesday, we had 16 applications for my position. So that's good news. So I'm hoping that you get a good cross section of folks. And as I say, once a week, I don't ask for any information, just numbers. And so once a week, she gives me a number, and I appreciate that because I just want to make sure that the word is getting out and that we get a good cross section for you guys to take a look at and to make the final decision. So I think those are my comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions, anyone? I think, Fran, you did a really good job, and I'm glad you mentioned about the December meeting because, you know, you have in your head that, oops, you take that up, but no, we're not, we're doing this. So that's a good reminder. So with that, seeing no other additional questions, is there anything for the good of the order?
I don't know if Jeff or Mike have anything they want to add, our attorneys.
Jeff, do you have anything?
I just wanted to note that the litigation with 350 Seattle and various other citizens groups regarding the authority of the board or the staff to issue NOC permits is progressing. We sent out some discovery requests. We are expecting that there is going to be an early summary judgment on legal issues. I do want to see some of the answers to that discovery request as they're relevant to some of the defenses that we have. But that is progressing, and Puget Sound Clean Air is kind of taking the forefront in coordinating our responses with other clean air agencies. So we're doing that in coordination, and that is ongoing. It's likely that there will be some sort of hearing before the end of the year.
Good. Thank you very much. Any questions for Jeff? Seeing none, again, is there anything else anyone wants to bring up? Seeing none, so I think we're at the end of our meeting, and I'll adjourn the meeting. It's 11:29. We almost made it to 11:30. So have a good rest of the month, everyone. Bye-bye.
Long November.